Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we slice through the noise and get straight to the insights.
Uh,
Today, we're plunging into a really fascinating and, well, rapidly evolving world, the cutting edge of legal protections against AI-generated content.
yeah, things like deepfakes and this whole fight for individual control over, our digital likeness, our voice.
Exactly. And our source material today gives us some unique insights, taking a close look at Denmark's proposed framework for protecting our digital selves.
That's right. Our mission today is basically to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from these sources. We're focusing on how different places, different jurisdictions are grappling with these, frankly, unprecedented challenges.
Challenges from AI being able to replicate our face, our voice, even artistic work.
Precisely. By the end of this deep dive, you should have a clearer picture of, well, the front lines of these legal developments and, maybe more importantly, what they actually mean for your individual rights in this new digital landscape.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We should probably start with Denmark, right? Their proposed amendment to the Danish Copyright Act.
Yeah. The core objective there is incredibly timely. It's really about directly combating deepfakes and the unauthorized use of our personal data by AI systems.
So what are the specific aims? I understand this bill is still in public consultation.
It is, yeah, and it's quite ambitious. First, it wants to establish a proactive right for, well, for you, to demand the removal of any AI-generated content using your face, your voice, or even your body.
Any content.
Any AI-generated content. And here's the really radical part. This applies regardless of the intention behind creating it.
Regardless of intention. Wow, that's a huge shift, isn't it, from, say, traditional copyright law?
Absolutely. Copyright often looks at commercial intent or, artistic creation. This is different. It's saying, look, it's my likeness, my biometric data, and I have a fundamental right to control its digital use. Full stop.
So just to be clear, if an AI gets trained on, say, photos of me that are publicly available online, or maybe my voice from videos, and then it generates something new, even if it wasn't meant maliciously, this bill gives me a tool to just say, take it down.
That's exactly the idea. It points towards a future where maybe individual digital sovereignty could completely override a creator's intent if your biometric data is involved.
Interesting, like personal data protection at its most fundamental.
Right. And it goes beyond just individuals. The bill also includes a right of removal for digitally generated imitations of an artist's work.
Go ahead.
And crucially, it aims to hit platforms where it hurts with fines. Online platforms, service providers. If they don't comply with these rights or specific removal requests, they could face penalties.
Okay, fines are mentioned. But when we look at how you'd actually use these rights, the rights and private actions bit in the proposal, it's interesting. It doesn't seem to lay out specific fine amounts or procedures for claiming compensation within the bill itself. Is that right?
That's right. So if you're a victim, say, of illegal AI content under this new framework, you'd actually have to go through the existing Danish civil law system to seek what they call general damages.
Ah, okay. So you're using existing legal paths for damages.
Exactly. And this is where, the complexity really comes in. Because while the bill gives Danish citizens this powerful, proactive right to protect their data, it doesn't currently impose regulatory penalties or, say, jail time for the perpetrators themselves.
Right. No criminal penalties specified there.
No. And it also doesn't set up a dedicated enforcement agency or a specific regulatory body just for AI offenses.
So what does that mean practically?
Well, it means the burden essentially is squarely on you, the citizen. You have to identify the illegal use of your information, and then you have to initiate the removal request or start legal proceedings yourself.
That sounds like, well, it's a great right on paper, but if the burden is entirely on the individual.
It's like giving you a great shield, yeah. But you still have to find and fight the dragon solo.
Especially if you're up against, big tech platforms or content creators potentially based anywhere. Does that kind of undermine the right itself? Putting the onus on individuals to solve a global tech issue?
That's a really fair question. And it's a challenge, frankly, that lots of jurisdictions are wrestling with. It really does rely heavily on individual vigilance and, let's be honest, access to legal resources.
Which brings us to the next point, I suppose. How do other parts of the world stack up against this Danish approach? Are they doing something similar or taking totally different routes?
Yeah, it gets really interesting when you compare. There isn't one single global approach emerging just yet.
So give us some examples. What's happening elsewhere?
Okay, well, look at the USA. They have the Take It Down Act.
Yeah.
Now, that's quite specific. It prohibits the non-consensual online publication of intimate visual depictions. both real ones and computer-generated ones like deepfakes.
Right, so very targeted at a specific serious harm.
Exactly. Focused on that specific harm, non-consensual intimate imagery. Now, if you connect that back to the bigger picture, the Danish bill feels broader, doesn't it?
Yeah, it seems like general data protection for your face, voice, body, regardless of whether the content is intimate or not.
Precisely. It's framed more as a protection of your identity itself, rather than just tackling specific types of harmful content.
Okay. And the European Union, they're usually big players in digital regulation?
They are. The EU, well, they've got their big AI Act, which is a broad regulation of the technology itself. But when it comes to AI-generated content on online platforms, that falls more under their Digital Services Act, the DSA.
The DSA, right.
And specifically, Article 15 of the DSA allows EU citizens to issue removal requests for content deemed illegal under EU or national law.
So again, a removal mechanism, kind of like Denmark, but tied to the concept of illegal content.
Yes, and it still relies quite a bit on citizen vigilance to spot and report that illegal content.
Yeah.
So there's still an onus on the individual there, too.
It's not quite the same specific focus on likeness as the Danish proposal seems to have.
Not explicitly in the same way, no. And then you have places like France. They actually updated their criminal code just this year, 2024, Article 226.8.
What does that do?
It explicitly prohibits sharing AI-generated visual or audio content that represents a person's image or speech, if it's done without their consent.
Ah, so France is moving towards making non-consensual deepfakes a criminal act.
Yes, that's a significant step, treating it as a crime, not just a civil matter or something requiring removal upon request.
That is a definite difference in approach. Criminalization versus a civil right to removal. What about, say, Australia?
Australia, well, they have their eSafety Act and the eSafety Commission. They primarily focus on online bullying and abuse.
Okay.
Now, their laws don't specifically mention AI-generated content right now, but it's possible such content could fall under the existing rules if it amounts to bullying or abuse.
So more of a reactive harm-based approach there, potentially?
Exactly. Rather than a proactive right to control your digital identity from the get-go. So you see this tension across different places, right? Between a broad right to control your likeness, like Denmark is proposing, and these more specific efforts targeting harmful content or criminalizing certain acts.
Okay, so Denmark's charting this interesting course domestically. But you mentioned earlier these things exist online, globally. How do local laws like this actually hold up in a borderless digital world?
Yeah, that's the perennial problem, isn't it? Limited jurisdiction.
How does that play out with the Danish bill?
Well, as is proposed right now, it doesn't really consider the generation, access, or sharing of AI-generated content that happens outside Denmark.
Ah, so if someone in another country creates deepfake content of a Danish citizen and posts it on a platform hosted elsewhere.
The Danish bill, as written, might not reach that far. It raises this really important question. Given how the internet just ignores borders, how effective can these local laws truly be on their own?
So what's the solution?
Well, the sources we looked at suggest pretty strongly that we'll need more international cooperation, or maybe updated legislation that tries to account for these cross-border issues. Otherwise, you could have a strong right in Denmark. But if the offending content is hosted somewhere with weaker laws, actually getting it removed becomes incredibly difficult, maybe impossible.
That makes sense. And speaking of emerging issues where the law seems to be lagging, let's talk about contractual imposition.
Ah, yes. This is popping up quite a bit, especially in sectors like entertainment.
What's the trend there?
We're seeing this growing trend where companies, organizations, are starting to put clauses into employment contracts, requiring employees, performers, actors to consent to the use of their likeness in AI-generated content.
As part of the job contract.
As part of the job contract, consent to having your digital double created and used.
Wow, that sounds problematic.
It's truly a gray area and potentially a huge vulnerability for workers, right? Employment law, lawmakers, they haven't really caught up yet. They haven't fully considered if these clauses might be unfair or even exploitative.
And the legality of just collecting and using someone's biometric info contractually for AI stuff.
That's still pretty uncertain. It's not really addressed by current legal frameworks in most places. Imagine being an actor, signing a contract that basically says, we own your digital twin, we can use it forever, maybe even after you're gone.
Yeah, that's unsettling. A whole new frontier for labor rights, really.
Absolutely. We're only just starting to grapple with it.
And we see similar kinds of legal gaps or uncertainties elsewhere, too, right? Like Malaysia was mentioned as an example.
Yes, Malaysia is a good example of a place where the current legal framework offers fairly limited protection against AI-generated content misuse and deepfakes, specifically.
They have data protection laws, though.
They do. Provisions like Section 6 and Section 12 of their Personal Data Protection Act, 2010, the PDPA, and they have a Copyright Act. But it's just not clear if these existing laws really extend properly to cover AI-generated content.
So no dedicated law or regulator for these specific AI risks yet.
Not currently, no. It really highlights how many legal systems globally are still playing catch-up with the technology.
It really feels like we're at a crossroads.
I think so. Which brings us to the final thought, really. Given how fast AI is evolving, how good it's getting at replicating us, our likeness, voice, even creative work, how do we strike the right balance?
The balance between protecting individuals, which seems crucial.
Exactly. Protecting individuals versus the global, borderless nature of the internet, and also, the potential benefits and innovation that AI technology offers. It's a tricky balancing act.
And what does the Danish approach signal in all this? Their focus on individual removal rights.
Well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Does it suggest a future direction where personal data sovereignty, that control over your digital self, becomes paramount, especially in a world increasingly shaped by AI?
Will we see more countries follow that Danish model, granting this broad, proactive right to control our digital identity?
Or will we end up with more of a patchwork? Lots of narrower laws focused on specific harms like the U.S. approach or criminalization like in France. It's a fundamental debate, really, about what digital rights will look like for generations to come, something to definitely keep an eye on.